The time has come to talk of many things, of ships and shacks and sealing wax. Alright, so how's it going? How's it going, everybody? I'm gonna take some time to let some people kind of crowd in before we start. So basically what we're doing today is that we're going through a Bran chapter from A Dance with Dragons, and it is the one where he takes the Weirwood paste. So we're going through that entire chapter, and then, well, I'll be stopping and we'll discuss a little bit, and then we'll read some more, and then we'll discuss it, and then we'll read some more, and you know, it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun to do this. So, in a moment we will get started. It is the Bran chapter with the Weirwood paste. It is one of the most eerie, creepy chapters in all of A Song of Ice and Fire, in my opinion. It's a very creepy chapter, and yeah, you guys enjoy my readings, but this is gonna be live, so I'll adjust my reverb. This is going to be live, so forgive me if I make some mistakes. Alright, so we will be starting in just a few seconds. I'm just gonna let some more people get in. Hello everyone, welcome to my live stream, and I don't stream often, so this is a rare occurrence. You guys like to hear me narrate stuff, so I'm gonna do this. Alright, so I want you guys to also pay close attention to the imagery in this chapter. The imagery is quite dark, and you see that from the very beginning, that the imagery is quite dark. So, few people are in here now, so I guess we can get started, and if you missed the beginning, you can totally rewind the live stream. So, let's do this. Bran. The moon was a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. A pale sun rose and set and rose again. Red leaves whispered in the wind. Dark clouds filled the skies and turned to storms. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and dead men with black hands and bright blue eyes shuffled round a cleft in the hillside, but could not enter. Under the hill the broken boy sat upon a weirwood throne, listening to the whispers in the dark, as ravens walked up and down his arms. See, immediately, very, very, very dark imagery. Pay attention to that first sentence. The moon was a crescent thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. Because it comes up again in this chapter, and it totally relates, in my opinion, to the very end of this chapter. Okay, so let's continue. You will never walk again, the three-eyed crow had promised, but you will fly. Sometimes the sound of song would drift up from someplace far below. The children of the forest, Old Nan would have called the singers, but those who sing the song of earth was their own name for themselves in the true tongue that no human man could speak. The ravens could speak it, though. Their small black eyes were full of secrets, and they would caw at him and peck his skin when they heard the songs. The moon was fat and full. Stars wheeled across a black sky. Rain fell and froze, and tree limbs snapped from the weight of the ice. Bran and Meera made up names for those who sang the song of earth. Ash and Leaf and Scales, Black Knife and Snowy Locks and Coals. Their true names were too long for human tongues, said Leaf. Only she could speak the common tongue. So what the others thought of their new names, Bran never learned. After the bone-grinding cold of the land beyond the wall, the caves were blessedly warm, and when the chill crept out of the rocks, the singers would light fires to drive it off again. Down here, there was no wind, no snow, no ice, no dead things reaching out to grab you. Only dreams and rushlight and the kisses of ravens, and the whisperer in the darkness. Alright, so you can already see the imagery is very, 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 very dark. So one thing that I want to point out, what was it? It is said that no human man could speak the language of the children. Like, it says right there that no human man. So, I don't know, man. Like, is that implying that perhaps a woman could speak the language? Because to say man after human, isn't that kind of redundant? So him saying no human man, does that leave the potential for a woman? And it also says that the ravens can speak the language. and they caw at him and peck when they hear these songs. So if they're cawing and pecking at Bran when they hear the songs, then what are the songs about? Because it seems like the songs are pissing the ravens off and making them pissed off at Bran. So what exactly are the children singing about? Very interesting to think about. Okay, where were we? And the Whisperer in the Darkness, the last green seer, the singers called him. But in Bran's dreams he was still a three-eyed crow. When Meera had asked him his true name, he made a ghastly sound that might have been a chuckle. I wore many names when I was quick, but even once I had a mother, and the name she gave me at her breast was Brynden. So it is confirmed, guys, that this is Brynden Rivers. Like, I've heard people say that it's not confirmed that Bloodraven is Brynden Rivers, but he is. He says it right. It's right there. I have an uncle, Brynden, Bran said. He's my mother's uncle, really. Brynden Blackfish, he's called. Your uncle may have been named for me. Some still are. Not so many as before. Men forget. Only the trees remember. His voice was soft, was so soft that Bran had to strain to hear. Most of him has gone into the tree, explained the singer Meera called Lief. He has lived beyond his mortal span, yet he lingers. For us, for you, for the realms of men. Only a little strength remains in his flesh. He has 1,000 eyes in one, but there's too much to watch. One day you will know. What will I know? Bran asked the reeds afterwards, when they came with torches burning brightly in their hand. To carry him back to his small chamber off the big cavern, where the singers had made beds for them to sleep. What do the trees remember? The secrets of the old gods, said Jojen Reed. Food and fire and rest had helped restore him after the ordeals of the journey, but he seemed sadder now, sullen, with a weary, haunted look about the eyes. Truths the first men knew, forgotten now in Winterfell, but not in the wet wild. We live closer to the green in our bogs and crunags. We remember. The earth and water, soil and stone, oaks and elms and willows, they were here before us, and will still remain when we are gone. So George R. R. Martin is a total hippie, right? He definitely is all about nature and conserving nature. That's like at the core of all of this. Like Jojen here says that the trees were here before us, and they're gonna be here after we're long gone. So it's a big thing about nature. And also notice, for some reason we don't really know why Jojen is sad. Why has Jojen grown sadder now? Does he sense his end? I don't know. Because he constantly says, this is not the day that I die. But now he's sad. And Bloodraven too, like he's being extended by the tree. Like he's lived beyond his mortal span, but he's like inside of the tree. The tree is extending his life. Alright. They were here before us, and will still remain when we are gone. So will you, said Meera. That made Bran sad. What if I don't want to remain when you are gone, he almost asked. But he swallowed the words unspoken. He was almost a man grown, and he did not want Meera to think he was some weepy babe. Maybe you could be green seers too, he said instead. No, Bran. Now Meera sounded sad. It is given to a few to drink of that green fountain while still in mortal flesh, to hear the whisperings of the leaves and see the trees, and see as the trees see, as the gods see, said Jojen. Most are not so blessed. The gods gave me only green dreams. My task was to get you here. My part in this is done. So this is the dilemma that I have to deal with when I read that line. Because Jojen says, the gods gave me only green dreams. How do you know it's coming from the gods? I thought you said the gods were the tree, and we know that Bloodraven is basically a part of the tree. So did Bloodraven just send those dreams and Jojen just thinks that they're prophetic? It seems to me that Bloodraven could have very well just sent these dreams to Jojen and told Jojen whatever the heck he wanted to tell Jojen to get him to lead Bran up here. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree that the gods sent Jojen's dreams. My task was to get you here. My part in this is done. The moon was a black hole in the sky. Wolves howled in the woods, sniffing through the snowdrifts after dead things. A murder of ravens erupted from the hillside, screaming their sharp cries, black wings beating above a white world. A red sun rose and set and rose again, painting the snows in shades of rose and pink. Under the hill, Jojen brooded, Meera fretted, and Hodor wandered through dark tunnels with a sword in his right hand and a torch in his left. Or was it Bran wandering? No one must ever know. See, that's the thing. Bran takes over Hodor's body, and like later on in this chapter, he says that Hodor is still there, but he's like shriveled into a dark corner of his own mind. So Bran is actually doing a horrible thing to Hodor. Hodor has his own will, and Bran is forcing Hodor deep inside of his own mind and taking over his body. And this is clearly very, very disturbing to Hodor, but Bran doesn't even consider how awful this is to Hodor, how it must feel to have someone inhabit your body. In the very beginning of A Dance with Dragons, Varamir Sixskins tries to take over someone's body, and it's like the most painful, awful thing, and she fights him, she bites off her own tongue. It's nuts. There's an ice cream truck outside of my window. I don't know if you guys can hear that. But yeah, so Bran is doing this awful thing to Hodor. It's not a good thing that he's doing. No one must ever know. The great cavern that opened on the abyss was black as pitch, black as tar, blacker than the feathers of a crow. Light entered as a trespasser, unwanted, unwelcome, and soon was gone again. Cook fires, candles, and rushes burned for a little while, and then guttered out again, their brief lives at an end. The singers made Bran a throne of his own, like the one Lord Brynden sat, white weirwood flecked with red, dead branches woven through living roots. They placed it in the great cavern by the abyss, where the black air echoed the sound of running water far below. Of soft gray moss they made his seat. Once he had been lowered into place, they covered him with warm furs. There he sat, listening to the hoarse whispers of his teacher. Never fear the darkness, Bran. The Lord's words were accompanied by a faint rustling of wood and leaf and a slight twisting of his head. The strongest trees are rooted in darkness, in the dark places of the earth. Darkness will be your cloak, your shield, your mother's milk. Darkness will make you strong. The moon was a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. There that line is again. The moon was a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of the knife. That is the very first line of the chapter, and here it is again. It pops up several times throughout this chapter, and like I said, it ties into the very end of the chapter. And it might blow your mind if you haven't considered this. So just remember that line. The moon was a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. Snowflakes drifted down soundlessly to cloak the soldier pines and sentinels in white. The drifts grew so deep that they covered the entrance to the caves, leaving a white wall that Summer had to dig through whenever he went outside to join his pack and hunt. Bran did not off-range with them in those days, but some nights he watched them from above. Flying was even better than climbing. Slipping into Summer's skin had become as easy for him as slipping on a pair of breeches once had been, before his back was broken. Changing his own skin for a raven's night-black feathers had been harder, but not as hard as he had feared. Not with these ravens. A wild stallion will buck and kick when a man tries to mount him, and try to bite the hand that slips between his teeth, Lord Brynden said. But a horse that has known one rider will accept another. Young or old, these birds have all been ridden. Choose one now, and fly. He chose one bird, and then another, without success. But the third raven looked at him with shrewd black eyes, tilted its head, and gave a quirk. And quick as that, he was not a boy looking at a raven, but a raven looking at a boy. The song of the river suddenly grew louder. The torches burned a little brighter than before, and the air was full of strange smells. When he tried to speak, it came out in a scream, and his first flight ended when he crashed into a wall, and ended back inside his own broken body. The raven was unhurt. It flew to him and landed on his arm. Bran stroked the feathers and slipped inside of it again. Before long he was flying around the cavern, weaving through long stone teeth that hung down from the ceiling, even flapping out over the abyss and swooping down into its cold black depths. Then he realized he was not alone. Someone else was in the raven, he told Lord Brynden, once he had returned to his own skin. Some girl. I felt her. A woman of those who sing the song of earth, his teacher said. Long dead, yet part of her remains. just as part of you would remain in summer if your boy's flesh were to die upon the morrow, a shadow of the soul. She will not harm you. Do all the birds have singers in them? All, Lord Brandon said. It was the singers who taught the first men to send messages by ravens. But in those days the birds would speak the words. The trees remember, but men forget. And so now they write the messages on parchment and tie them round the feet of birds who would have never shared their skin. Okay, so look at this. Look at this. This woman, this girl that's inside the raven is long dead. But a part of her is inside of this raven? Okay, see, this is my dilemma. How old are these ravens? If the long dead soul of one of the children of the forest is in each of these ravens, that means that the raven was warged, right? By one of the children of the forest, right? And if they're long dead, how old are these ravens? Like, are these ravens, like, supernaturally old? Because that's what it kind of seems like to me. I don't know. Because, like, why would a part of a long dead child of the forest be inside of a raven? I don't know. Are these, like, immortal ravens? I don't know. Someone in the chat said there's a Winds of Winter announcement today. I know George R. R. Martin did post something on Twitter, but it wasn't necessarily a Winds of Winter announcement, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay, so where were we? Trees remember... Okay. Old Nan had told him the same story once. Bran remembered, but when he asked Robb if it were true, his brother had laughed and asked if he believed in Grumpkins too. He wished Robb were with them now. I'd tell him I could fly, but he wouldn't believe, so I'd have to show him. I bet that he could learn to fly too. Him, and Arya and Sansa, even baby Rickon and Jon Snow. We could all be ravens and live in Maester Luwin's rookery. That was just another silly dream, though. Some days Bran wondered if all of this wasn't just some dream. Maybe he had fallen asleep out in the snows and dreamed himself a safe, warm place. You have to wake, he would tell himself. You have to wake right now, or you'll go dreaming into death. Once or twice he pinched his arm with his fingers really hard, but the only thing that did was make his arm hurt. In the beginning, he had tried to count the days by making note of when he woke and slept, but down there, sleeping and waking had a way of melting into one another. Dreams became lessons, lessons became dreams. Things happened all at once, or not at all. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm unprofessional, I gotta take this call. Hello?
What is that, my brother?
I'm doing a live stream right now. Yeah, like 7 o'clock. Like 7 o'clock, that's when... Yeah. Okay. Okay, see you. Sorry about that. Back to what I was doing. In the beginning, he had tried to count the days by making note of when he woke and slept. But down here, sleeping and waking had a way of melting into one another. Dreams became lessons. Lessons became dreams. Things happened all at once or not at all. Had he done that or dreamed it? Only one man in 1,000 is born a skin changer, Lord Brynden said one day, after Bran had learned to fly. And only one skin changer in 1,000 can be a green seer. I thought the green seers were the wizards of the children, Bran said. The singers, I mean. In a sense, those you call the children of the forest have eyes golden as the sun. But once in a great while, there is one born amongst them with eyes red as blood, or green as the moss on a tree, in the heart of the forest. By these signs do the gods mark those they have chosen to receive the gift. The chosen ones are not robust, and their quick years upon the earth are few. For every song must have its balance, but inside the wood they linger long indeed. 1,000 eyes, 100 skins, wisdom deep as the roots of ancient trees. So he says here that most children of the forest, they're not green seers, they're not skin changers. But sometimes there is one born with red eyes or green eyes that can see the future. Now if you remember the ghost of Highheart, she's got red eyes. She's got red eyes, and she totally has prophetic visions, and she hangs out at Highheart with all the cut down weirwood trees, and she's always talking about visions from the gods. So is the ghost of Highheart descended from the children of the forest? Is she like a hybrid? Because that's my personal opinion, because he says that their years are short. The people that, like the children that are born green seers, they don't live very long. They're kind of weak and they're not super healthy. The ghost of Highheart, I mean, but that's from the children of the forest point of view. The children of the forest live way longer than men. So like even like a green seer could maybe live like 100 years. I don't know, because the children of the forest, they can live hundreds and hundreds of years. So how long can a green seer live? I know he says the years are short, but is it short? It's probably short in relation to the other children. Yes, Bloodraven has red eyes as well. He does as well. But I'm reading the comments. Okay, let's get back on this though. So Ghost of Highheart, is she descended from the children of the forest? I think that's a distinct possibility. In fact, who is the Ghost of Highheart? In A Storm of Swords, I believe, Arya is with the Brotherhood without banners, and the Brotherhood go to this hill called Highheart, and there are all these chopped down weirwood trees, right? And at night, this old, tiny little woman with red eyes and really pale skin walks up, and she tells them her dreams, and she predicts a lot. She predicts the Red Wedding, she predicts the death of Balon Greyjoy, she predicts Joffrey's wedding and his death. So yeah, she's like this little woman that lives in the woods. And she's actually mentioned in A Dance with Dragons as like a rumor, like Tyrion says, oh, there's a woods woman that lives in the woods maybe. So yeah, that's the Ghost of Highheart. Okay, so where were we? Okay. But once inside the woods, they linger long indeed. 1,000 eyes, 100 skins, wisdom deep as the roots of ancient trees. Green seers. Bran did not understand, so he asked the reeds. Do you like to read books, Bran? Jojen asked. Some books. I like the fighting stories. My sister Sansa liked the kissing stories, but those are stupid. A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. That is such a George R. R. Martin line. A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. Yeah, like George R. R. Martin definitely wrote that. Said Jojen. The man who never reads lives only once. The singers of the forest had no books, no ink, no parchment, no written language. Instead, they had the trees and the weirwoods above all. When they died, they went into the wood, into the leaf, and the limb and root and trees, and the trees remembered. All their songs and spells, their histories and prayers, everything they knew about this world. Maesters will tell you that the weirwoods are sacred to the old gods. The singers believe they are the old gods. When singers die, they become part of that godhood. Bran's eyes widen. They're going to kill me. No, Meera said. Jojen, you're scaring him. He is not the one who needs to be afraid. Eerie line, right? What is that? What the heck does that mean? She says, Jojen, Bran says, they're gonna kill me. And Meera's like, no, Jojen, you're scaring him. And then Jojen says, he is not the one that needs to be afraid. So Jojen is implying that he should be afraid of the children for some reason. Interesting. Let's see how this chapter develops. Okay. The moon was fat and full. Summer prowled through the silent woods, a long gray shadow that grew more gaunt with every hunt. For living game could not be found. The ward upon the cave mouth still held. The dead men could not enter. The snows had buried most of them again, but they were still there, hidden, frozen, waiting. Other dead things came to join them. Things that had once been men and women, even children. Dead ravens sat on bare brown branches, wings crusted with ice. A snow bear crashed through the bush, huge and skeletal, half of its head sloughed away to reveal the skull beneath. Summer and his pack fell upon it and tore it to pieces. Afterward they gorged, though the meat was rotted and half frozen, and it moved even as they ate it. So like there's like a dead bear, like everything's trying to get into this cave. And there's like a dead bear, and like Summer's pack like attacks it and like eats it, and it's like still like the flesh is still moving even if they're eating it. That is so, like, what magic is this? This is like some crazy magic. Like it's hacked in, it ripped into pieces, and it's still moving. That's nuts. Under the hill, they still had food to eat. 100 kinds of mushrooms grew down there. Blind white fish swam in the black river. but they tasted just as good as fish with eyes once you cook them up. Since it's so dark in those caves, the fish are blind. Like this is an actual phenomena in real life. Like in caves where like these animals see no darkness, they don't have skin pigmentation, they can't see because like down in the dark, these animals have no need for eyesight because it's always dark anyways. There's no light, so they can't see. Okay, where was I? Blind white fish swam in the black river, but they tasted just as good as fish with eyes once you cooked them up. They had cheese and milk from the goats that shared the caves with the singers, even some oats and barley corn and dried fruit laid by during the long summer. And almost every day they ate blood stew, thickened with barley and onions and chunks of meat. George R. R. Martin loves to describe food. That's like one of his favorite things to do. Jojen thought it might be squirrel meat, and Meera said that it was rat. Bran did not care. It was meat, and it was good. The stewing made it tender. I'm eerily reminded of bowls of brown from King's Landing. If you remember in King's Landing, in Flea Bottom, like there are these places that serve what's called brown. And basically people bring any type of animal that's got meat, they'll like a pigeon or rat, anything, they put it in these bowls of brown. And there's even been people in the bowls of brown because Tyrion has a singer that Shay is taken up with, and he has him killed and he has him put into the bowls of brown. So I'm wondering, I don't know, man, what are they eating here? Is it really rat? Is it really squirrel? What are they eating? I don't trust these children. Like you guys know I don't trust the children of the forest. I have my bias. I do. And this is this is one of the chapters that makes me not trust them. Just watch how this chapter develops. Just watch. Almost every day. Okay. Bran did not care. It was meat, and it was good. The stewing made it tender. The caves were timeless, vast, silent. They were home to more than 70 living singers, and the bones of 1,000 dead, and extended far below the hollow hill. So 70 singers, that's 60. That's 60. That's more than 60 singers. So there's just over 60 children of the forest left, at least inside of this cave. Men should not go wandering in this place, Leif warned them. The river you hear is swift and black, and flows down and down to a sunless sea, and there are passages that go even deeper, bottomless pits and sudden shafts, forgotten ways that lead to the very center of the earth. Even my people have not explored them all, and we have lived here for 1,000,000 of your man years. So 1,000,000 of your man years. Okay, I wanted to talk about this because I was reading this last night. So 1,000,000 years is 1,000,000 years. So that leads me to believe that the children are just a different evolutionary tract of mankind. They were a tract of mankind that was isolated to Westeros while the other side was in Essos. And you've got the giants and the children who are two isolated tracts. They say we've been down here for 1,000,000 years, basically. So that's plenty of time for the evolution of the children to occur. And right after she says we've been down here for 1,000 years, George R. R. Martin goes on to describe what exactly they look like. So this is the description of the children of the forest. Though the men of the 7 kingdoms might call them children of the forest, Leif and her people were far from childlike. Little wise men of the forest would have been closer. They were small compared to men, as a wolf is smaller than a direwolf. That does not mean it is a pup. They had nut brown skin, dappled like a deer's with paler spots, and large ears that could hear things that no man's could hear. Their eyes were big too, great golden cat's eyes that could see down passages where a boy's eyes only saw blackness. Their hands only had 3 fingers, a thumb with black sharp... Damn it, I'm stumbling. Their hands had only 3 fingers, a thumb, with sharp black claws instead of nails. And they did sing. They sang in the true tongue, so Bran could not understand the words, but their voices were as pure as winter air. "Where are the rest of you?" Bran asked Leif once. "Gone. Down into the earth," she answered. "Into the stones, into the trees. Before the first men came, All this land that you call Westeros was home to us. Yet even in those days we were few. The gods gave us long lives but not great numbers, lest we overrun the world as deer will overrun a wood where there are no wolves to hunt them. That was in the dawn of days, when our sun was rising. Now it sinks, and this is our long dwindling. The giants are almost gone as well. They who were our bane and our brothers. The great lions of the western hills have been slain. The unicorns are all but gone. The mammoths down to a few hundred. The direwolves will outlast us all, but their time will come as well. In the world that men have made, there is no room for us, for them, or us. She seemed sad when she said it, and that made Bran sad as well. It was only later that he thought, men would not be sad. Men would be wroth. Men would hate and swear bloody vengeance. The singers sing sad songs where men would fight and kill. See, that is the line. I love it. I love that line. The singers sing sad songs where men would fight and kill. Well, guess what, Bran? Guess what, Bran? The singers have their ways, and they're using you. They're using you for their vengeance. And they used the White Walkers for their vengeance in the beginning. He says here that I don't get why they're sad. Like if another race of beings did this to men, men would rage. Men would fight. They wouldn't just be sad and sing sad songs. And I don't think for a second that the children are just apathetic and they're just like, we're just going to be sad and sing sad songs about this. No, these children have a plot. They have a dark plot. Like, why in the world would the children give a rat's behind about mankind? Mankind that has taken everything from them. Everything. Their land, like their gods. No, like I know that these children harbor a deep resentment for mankind. I know it. I know it. Okay. One day, Meera and Jojen decided to go see the river, despite Leif's cautions. I want to come too, Bran said. Meera gave him a mournful look. The river was 600 feet below, down steep slopes and twisty passages, she explained. And the last part required climbing down a rope. Hodor could never make the climb with you on his back. I'm sorry, Bran. Bran remembered a time when no one could climb as good as him, not even Robb or Jon. Part of him wanted to shout at them for leaving him. Another part wanted to cry. But he was almost a man grown, though, so he said nothing. But after they were gone, he slipped inside Hodor's skin and followed them. The big stable boy no longer fought him, as he had the first time back in the lake tower during the storm. Like a dog who has had all the fight whipped out of him, Hodor would curl up and hide whenever Bran reached out for him. His hiding place was somewhere deep within him, a pit where not even Bran could touch him. No one wants to hurt you, Hodor, he said silently to the child man whose flesh he'd taken. I just want to be strong again for a while. I'll give it back, the way I always do. You see how this affects Hodor? He's like crowded. He's like pushed into a corner of his own mind. He's terrified. He's terrified of what Bran is doing to him. Okay? No one ever knew when he was wearing Hodor's skin. Bran only had to smile and do as he was told and mutter Hodor from time to time. And he could follow Meera and Jojen grinning happily without anyone suspecting it was really him. He often tagged along whenever he was wanted or not. Whether he was wanted or not. In the end, the Reeds were glad he came. Okay, so look at this. Bran obviously knows and understands that what he's doing is wrong on some level. Otherwise, he wouldn't be hiding it from Meera and Jojen. So I think on some level, Bran definitely understands that what he's doing is wrong. Okay. Jojen made it down the ropes easily enough, but after Meera caught a blind white fish with her frog spear and it was time to climb back up, his arms began to tremble, and he could not make it to the top. So they had to tie the rope around him and let Hodor haul him up. Hodor, he grunted every time he gave a pull. Hodor, Hodor, Hodor. The moon was a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. That's the third time. That's the third time, guys. The moon was a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. Like, George R. Martin is drawing attention to this. He's said it 3 times in this chapter. When George R. Martin repeats himself, you better pay attention. You better pay attention. Like, when George R. R. Martin repeats himself, you better pay attention. And this is the third time. Number 3. Summer dug up a severed arm, black and covered with hoarfrost, its fingers opening and closing as it pulled itself across the frozen snow. There was still enough meat on it to fill his empty belly, and after that was done, he cracked the arm bones for the marrow. Only then did the arm remember that it was dead. So like, he's like, Summer's chewing on a dead man's arm, and it's still moving, but when he cracks the bone, for some reason, it remembers that it's dead. Bran ate with Summer and his pack as a wolf. As a raven, he flew with the murderers, circling the hill at sunset, watching for foes, feeling the icy touch of the air. As Hodor, he explored the caves. He found chambers full of bones, shafts that plunged deep into the earth, a place where skeletons of giant bats hung upside down from the ceiling. He even crossed the slender stone bridge that arched over the abyss and discovered more passages and chambers on the far side. One was full of singers, enthroned like Brandon in nests of weirwood roots that wove under and through and around their bodies. Most of them looked dead to him, but as he crossed in front of them, their eyes would open and follow the light of his torch, and one of them opened and closed, a wrinkled mouth as if he were trying to speak. "Hodor," Bran said to him, and he felt the real Hodor stir down in his pit. Seated on his throne of roots in the great cavern, half corpse, half tree, Lord Brynden seemed less a man than some ghastly statue made of twisted wood, old bone, and rotted wool. The only thing that looked alive in the pale ruin was his face, and his one red eye, burning like the last coal of a dead fire, surrounded by twisted roots and tatters of leathery white skin hanging off a yellowed skull. The sight of him still frightened Bran, the weirwood roots snaking in and out of his withered flesh, the mushrooms sprouting from his cheeks, the white wooden worm that grew from the socket where one eye had been. He liked it better than when the torches were put out. In the dark place, he could pretend that it was the three-eyed crow who whispered to him and not some grisly talking corpse. One day, I will be like him. The thought filled Bran with dread. Bad enough that he was broken, with his useless legs. Was he doomed to lose the rest too? To spend all of his years with a weirwood growing in him and through him? Lord Brynden drew his life from the tree. Lief told them he did not eat. He did not drink. He slept and dreamed. He watched. I was going to be a knight, Bran remembered. I used to run and climb and fight. It seemed 1,000 years ago. Alright, so I want to talk about something real quick, like a comparison to Dune by Frank Herbert. In Dune, a couple books in, Leto II Atreides realizes that he has to save humanity. And it's a long story, but the only way to save humanity is for him to conjoin with sand trout and slowly over like 3,500 years turn into a sandworm. So he basically offers up his humanity and he extends his life, but he's no longer human. Like he can't even touch another person because like the water on their skin will like burn him. So like this is kind of similar to what Lord Brynden did. He extended his life, he gave up his humanity essentially, like he's more tree than man at this point. So it kind of reminds me of Dune actually. It's actually very similar in a lot of ways. Okay. What was he now? Only Bran the Broken Boy. Brandon of House Stark, prince of a lost kingdom, lord of a burned castle, heir to ruins. He had thought the three-eyed crow would be a sorcerer, a wise wizard who could fix his legs, but that was some stupid child's dream, he realized now. I am too old for such fancies, he told himself. 1,000 eyes, 100 skins, wisdom as deep as the roots of the ancient trees. That was as good as being a knight. Almost as good anyways. See, that line pops up over and over again in this chapter 2. 1,000 eyes, 100 skins, wisdom as deep as the roots of ancient trees. That pops up over and over again in this chapter as well. Almost as good anyway. The moon was a black hole in the sky. Outside the cave the world went on. Outside the cave the sun rose and set. The moon turned. The cold winds howled. Under the hill, Jojen Reed grew ever more sullen and solitary, to his sister's distress. She would often sit with Bran beside her, beside their little fire, talking of everything and nothing, petting Summer where he slept between them, whilst her brother wandered the caverns by himself. Jojen had even taken to climbing up the cave's mouth when the day was bright. He would stand there for hours looking out over the forest, wrapped in furs yet shivering all the same. So Jojen keeps, he's getting sadder and more solitary. Something is bothering him. And yes, the moon was a black hole in the sky. I think it's a metaphor for a new moon. Like it's like there's no moon in the sky. I'm looking at the comments in case you're wondering. Yeah, the moon was a black hole in the sky. Yeah, that's what I was saying. The imagery in this entire chapter is very dreary. It's very dark. Like Bran is talking about like how everything outside of the caves, everything still goes on, but inside the cave it's like time is just frozen. Like time is just frozen in this place. Okay, where was I? He wants to go home, Meera told Bran. He will not even try and fight his fate. He says the green dreams do not lie. He's being brave, said Bran. The only time a man can be brave is when he's afraid. This his father had told him once, long ago, on the day they found the direwolf pups in the summer snows. He still remembered. He's being stupid, Meera said. I'd hoped that when we found your three-eyed crow. Now, I wonder why we ever came. For me, Bran thought. His green dreams, he said. His green dreams. Meera's voice was bitter. Hodor, said Hodor. Meera began to cry. Bran hated being crippled then. Don't cry, he said. He wanted to put his arms around her, hold her tight the way his mother used to hold him back at Winterfell, when he'd hurt himself. She was right there, only a few feet from him, but so far out of reach. It might have been 100 leagues to touch her. It might have been 100 leagues. To touch her, he would need to pull himself along the ground with his hands, dragging his legs behind him. The floor was rough and uneven, and it would be slow going, full of scrapes and bumps. I could put on Hodor's skin, he thought. Hodor could hold her and pat her on the back. The thought made Bran feel strange, but he was still thinking it when Meera bolted from the fire, back out into the darkness of the tunnels. He heard her steps recede until there was nothing but the voices of the singers. The moon was a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. That's number 4. The moon was a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. The days marched past, one after the other, each shorter than the one before. The nights grew longer. No sunlight ever reached the caves beneath the hill. No moonlight ever touched these stony halls. Even the stars were stranger there. Those things belonged to the world above, where time ran in its iron circles, day to night, night to day. It is time, Lord Brynden said. Something in his voice sent icy fingers running down Bran's back. Time for what? Time for the next step. Time for you to go beyond skin changing and learn what it means to be a green seer. The trees will teach him, said Leaf. She beckoned, and another of the singers padded forward, the white-haired one that Meera had named Snowy Locks. She had a weirwood bowl in her hand, carved with a dozen faces, like the ones the heart tree wore. Inside was a white paste, thick and heavy, with dark red veins running through it. You must eat of this, said Leaf. She handed Bran a wooden spoon. The boy looked at the bowl uncertainly. What is it? A paste of weirwood seeds. Something about the look of it made Bran feel ill. The red veins were only weirwood sap, he supposed, but in the torchlight, they looked remarkably like blood. He dipped the spoon into the paste, then hesitated. Will this make me a green seer? Your blood makes you a green seer, said Lord Brynden. This will help awaken your gifts and wed you to the trees. Alright. Here is the moment of truth. Like Bran gets this weird paste, and he says and there's something in Bloodraven's tone that makes him feel like, oh god, what's going on? There's something creepy in Bloodraven's tone. And then he sees it and he's like, I don't know, man, this kind of looks like blood. What's going on here? What exactly is going on here? Like he sees it and it makes him feel sick. Okay, where were we? This will help awaken your gifts and wed you to the trees. Bran did not want to be married to a tree, But who else would wed a broken boy like him? 1,000 eyes, 100 skins, wisdom deep as the roots of ancient trees, a green seer. See, this makes me think that Bloodraven is just taking advantage of an innocent boy with low self-esteem. Like, cause Brandon's constantly putting himself down. Like, I'm just a broken boy. Like, I have no life. This is the only life that I could ever live. Like, Bran is like, he's like got really low self-esteem at this point. Like, he is the perfect candidate to be taken advantage of. The perfect candidate. Because he's broken. Excuse me. A green seer. He ate. It had a bitter taste, though not so bitter as acorn paste. The first spoonful was the hardest to get down. He almost retched it back up. The second tasted better. The third was almost sweet. The rest he spooned up eagerly. Why had he thought that it was bitter? It tasted of honey and new fallen snow, of pepper and cinnamon, and the last kiss his mother ever gave him. So, that's very similar to the shade of the evening. Like, the taste changes. It changes into a bunch of different stuff. It tastes bitter at first, and it tastes better, and then it tastes like honey and the kiss of his mother, and cinnamon, and yeah, so like it kind of reminds me of Shade of the Evening. The empty bowl slipped from his fingers and clattered on the cavern floor. I don't feel any different. What happens next? Leaf touched his hand. The trees will teach you. The trees remember. He raised his hand and the singers began to move about the cavern, extinguishing the torches one by one. The darkness thickened and crept towards them. Close your eyes, said the three-eyed crow. Slip your skin and do as you do when you join summer. But this time, go into the roots instead. Follow them up through the earth, to the trees upon the hill, and tell me what you see. Bran closed his eyes and slipped, free of his skin, into the roots, he thought. Into the weirwood. Become the tree. For an instant, he could see the cavern in its black mantle. He could hear the river rushing below. Then, all at once, he was back home again. Lord Eddard Stark sat upon a rock beside the deep black pool in the Godswood, the pale roots of the heart tree twisting around him like an old man's gnarled arms. The great sword ice lay across Lord Eddard's lap, and he was cleaning the blade with an oilcloth. Winterfell, Bran whispered. His father looked up. Who's there? He asked, turning. And Bran, frightened, pulled away. His father and the black pool and the Godswood faded, and were gone, and he was back in the cavern, the pale, thick roots of the weirwood throne cradling his limbs as a mother does a child. The torch flared to life before him. Tell us what you saw. Far away, Leaf looked almost a girl, no older than Bran or one of his sisters, but close at hand she seemed far older. She claimed to have seen 200 years. Bran's throat was very dry. He swallowed. Winterfell. I was back at Winterfell. I saw my father. He's not dead. He's not. I saw him. He's back at Winterfell. He's alive. No, said Leaf. He's gone, boy. Do not seek to call him back from death. I saw him. Bran could feel the rough wood pressing against his one cheek. He was cleaning ice. You saw what you wished to see. Your heart yearns for your father and your home, so that's what you saw. A man must know how to look before he can hope to see, said Lord Brandon. Those were the shadows of days past that you saw, Bran. You were looking through the eyes of the heart tree in your Godswood. Time is different for a tree than for a man. Sun and soil and water. These are the things a weirwood understands, not days and years and centuries. For men, time is a river. We are trapped in its flow, hurtling from past to present, always in the same direction. The lives of trees are different. They root and grow and die in one place, and that river does not move them. The oak is the acorn is the oak, and the weirwood. 1,000 human years are a moment to a weirwood, and through such gates you and I may gaze into the past. So, what happens here is Bran goes into the past, and there is no doubt in my mind that he affects the past. And I know, like, no one's gonna believe this, but last year, before it aired, that scene where Bran calls out to the past in the show, and his father hears him. Before that aired, and before everyone had the theory that Bran could communicate with the past, I was working on this theory, and I'm not lying. I was working on this freaking theory, and like I was working on it, and I was like, Bran can communicate with the past, and I had it all. I was typing it up, and I was doing research, and then that freaking episode aired, and then everybody just knew about it, so I just scrapped it. And I was just like, God dang it, I could have had it. I could have had it, and it would have been perfect, because like right before that aired, I made this awesome video. Yeah, it would have been great, but you know, it wasn't to be. The gods were against me. Okay. But Bran, said Bran, he heard me. He heard a whisper on the wind, rustling amongst the leaves. You cannot speak to him, try as you might. I know. I have my own ghost. Bran, a brother that I loved, a brother that I hated, a woman that I desired. Through the trees I see them still, but no word of mine has ever reached them. The past remains the past. We can learn from it, but we cannot change it. Oh, can we? Because, like, I don't care what Bloodraven said. Bran spoke, and Ned heard something. So that, either way, that's him affecting the past. Even if, like, Bran can't directly speak to Ned, he did something, and Ned Stark heard it in the past. He heard it in the past. Okay. Will I see my father again? Once you have mastered your gifts, you may look where you will and see what the trees have seen. But yesterday or last year, 1,000 ages passed. Men live their lives trapped in an eternal present, between the midst of memory and the sea of shadow. That is all we know of the days to come. Certain moths live their whole lives in a day, yet to them that little span of time must seem as long as the years and decades do to us. An oak may live 300 years, a redwood 3,000. A weirwood will live forever if left undisturbed. To them seasons pass in the flutter of a moth's wing, and past, present, and future are one. Nor will your sight be limited to your Godswood. The singers carved eyes into their heart trees to awaken them, and those are the first eyes a new green seer learns to use. But in time, you will see well beyond the trees themselves. So here we go, guys. Right here is definitive proof that there was nothing wrong with that scene in last season where Bran's at the Tower of Joy, because Bloodraven says right here that seeing through the eyes of the Weirwood that's just the beginners. Like, eventually Bran will be able to see whatever he wants. Eventually he'll see whatever he wants. So like, it's not limited to just the Weirwoods. It's not. It's right there. Read them and weep. Nor will your sight be limited to your Godswood. The singers carved eyes into their heart trees to awaken them, and those are the first eyes the new green seer learns to use. But in time, you will see well beyond the trees themselves. Alright. When? Bran wanted to know. In a year or 3 or 10? That I have not glimpsed. It will come in time, I promise you. Oh, wait. I'm confused. When? In a year, or 3, or 10. That I have not glimpsed. It will come in time, I promise you. But I am tired now, and the trees are calling me. We will resume on the morrow. Hodor carried Bran back to his chamber, muttering Hodor in a low voice as Leif went before them with a torch. He had hoped that Meera and Jojen would be there, so he could tell them what he had seen. But their snug alcove in the rock was cold and empty. Meera and Jojen are not here. Where are they? Hodor eased Bran down onto his bed, covered him with furs, and made a fire for them. 1,000 eyes, 100 skins, wisdom as deep as the roots of ancient trees. Watching the flames, Bran decided he would stay awake till Meera came back. Jojen would be unhappy, he knew, but Meera would be glad for him. He did not remember closing his eyes. But then somehow, he was back at Winterfell again, in the Godswood, looking down upon his father, Lord Eddard. Lord Eddard seemed much younger this time. His hair was brown with no hint of gray in it, his head bowed. Let them grow up close as brothers. With only love between them, he prayed. And let my lady wife find it in her heart to forgive. Say whatever you want about that line, I'm not going to say anything. Let them grow up close as brothers, with only love between them. And let my lady wife find it in her heart to forgive. That can be interpreted many ways. Like that can be, I feel like that line could be interpreted as evidence for R plus L equals J and also evidence against it. Because he's saying, okay. I don't know, man. Because he's saying that it kind of rejects the idea that that Jon Snow is Ned's son. Because he says, let them grow up close as brothers. So, close as brothers, implying that they're not brothers? So, yeah. So that kind of says that Jon isn't Ned's son. That's kind of what that line says to me. So, yeah. Father! Bran's voice was a whisper in the wind, a rustle in the leaves. Father, it's me! It's Bran! Brandon! Eddard Stark lifted his head and looked long at the weirwood, frowning, but he did not speak. He could not see me, Bran realized, despairing. He wanted to reach out and touch him, but all that he could do was watch and listen. I am in the tree. I am inside the heart tree, looking out of its red eyes, but the weirwood cannot talk. So I can't. Eddard Stark resumed his prayer. Bran felt his eyes fill up with tears. But were they his own tears or the weirwood's? If I cry, will the tree begin to weep? I keep stuttering. Been reading out loud for too long. The rest of his father's words were drowned out by a sudden clatter of wood on wood. Eddard Stark dissolved, like mist in a morning sun. Now 2 children danced across the Godswood, hooting at one another as they dueled with broken branches. The girl was older and tall, and the girl was the older and taller of the 2. Arya, Bran thought eagerly, and he watched her leap up onto a rock and cut at the boy. But that couldn't be right. If the girl was Arya, the boy was Bran himself, and he had never worn his hair so long, and Arya had never beat me playing swords the way the girl is beating him. She slashed the boy across his thigh so hard that his leg went out from under him, and he fell into the pool and began to splash and shout. You be quiet, stupid, the girl said, tossing her own branch aside. It's just water. Do you want old Nan to hear and run and tell father? She knelt and pulled her brother from the pool. But before she got him out again, the 2 of them were gone. After that, the glimpses came faster and faster. Wait, let's talk about that. Okay, so the boy and the girl, that's clearly Eddard and Lyanna. So yeah, that's just a scene of them. So, after that, the glimpses came faster and faster. This is where it gets really interesting, guys. This is the best part of the chapter, in my opinion. After that, the glimpses came faster and faster, till Bran was feeling lost and dizzy. He saw no more of his father, nor the girl who looked like Arya, but a woman, heavy with child, emerged naked, dripping from the black pool, and knelt before the tree. And she begged the old gods for a son who would avenge her. Then there came a brown-haired girl, slender as a spear, who stood on the tips of her toes. Oh, wait. Who stood on the tips of her toes. Crap, I gotta get this aligned. Okay, then there came a brown-haired girl, slender as a spear, who stood on the tips of her toes to kiss the lips of a young knight as tall as Hodor. So that could potentially be Sir Duncan the Tall. A dark-eyed youth, pale and fierce, sliced 3 branches off the weirwood and shaped them into arrows. I don't know who that is. Dark-eyed youth, pale and fierce. Like, do you guys have any ideas about who that is? Because I don't know. I'm not entirely sure about who the dark-haired youth is. Sliced 3 branches off the weirwood and shaped them into arrows. The tree itself was shrinking, growing smaller with each vision, whilst the lesser trees dwindled into saplings and vanished, only to be replaced by other trees that would dwindle and vanish in their turn. So Bran is going back thousands of years. Like, Winterfell is the oldest castle in Westeros, and that tree has been there since the pact between the children of the forest and mankind. So that's basically, that's thousands and thousands and thousands of years that he's gonna go back here. Okay. The tree itself was shrinking, growing smaller with each vision, whilst lesser trees dwindled into saplings and vanished, only to be replaced by other trees that would dwindle and vanish in their turn. And now, The lords Bran glimpsed were tall and hard, stern men in furs and chainmail. Some were the faces he remembered from the statues in the crypts, but they were gone before he could put a name to them. So he even sees like the old kings of winter. He even sees the kings of winter, like he's going back thousands and thousands of years. Then he watched a bearded man force a captive down on his knees before the heart tree. A white-haired woman stepped towards them through a drift of dark red leaves, a bronze sickle in her hand. "No!" Bran said. "No, don't!" But the woman could not hear him, no more than his father had. The woman grabbed the captive by the hair, hooked the sickle around his throat, and slashed. And through the mist of centuries, the broken boy could only watch as the man's feet drummed against the earth. But as his knife flowed out of him in a red tide, as his life flowed out of him in a red tide, Brandon Stark could taste the blood. And that is the end of the chapter. And what I wanted to talk about was that final scene, the execution. What are we seeing there? What we are seeing is ancient. Very ancient. Very ancient. We're seeing someone being sacrificed before the Weirwood tree. Just like Jojen was sacrificed before the Weirwood tree. Now what we're seeing there is far older than Lady Stoneheart. We're seeing something far older than Lady Stoneheart. Lady Stoneheart hangs people. Like this is someone being sacrificed before a Weirwood tree, and their blood goes into the Weirwood tree. So that throughout this chapter, Moon is sharp as the blade of a knife. Moon is sharp as the blade of a knife. Moon is sharp as the blade of a knife. Bran Stark drinks some weird potion that looks like blood. And then Jojen's not there. And then the last thing he sees is someone being sacrificed before a Weirwood tree. They killed Jojen. Jojen was the crucial key in awakening the Green Seer ability. Like sacrifice is such a huge part of these novels. Blood sacrifice is a huge part of these novels that comes up again and again, guys. Again and again. And that's the end of the chapter. So very dark chapter. Very, 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 yes, absolutely right. I can't pronounce her name. But the moon is totally feminine. So the woman sacrificing a man, the moon is as sharp as the blade of a knife. Now, like, you guys are better at this shit than me. So is there any, like, great house that has a sigil of a moon? I didn't even think about this when I was reading the chapter last night. Because we might be able to figure out who this woman is, or who her descendants are. Like, is anyone, like, descended, like, is there any sigil that's like a moon? Because I'm not entirely sure. But I think that could totally tie into this. Like, George R. Martin is laying hints throughout this chapter that Jojen is going to be sacrificed. And Jojen knows it. Jojen, okay, thanks, Nicole. Jojen absolutely knows it because he's not the one that needs to be afraid. He's not the one that needs to be afraid? Yeah. Could Jojen have been the Green Seer and killing him in front of the tree allowed the ability to pass to Bran? Potentially, because the only reason that Jojen thinks that he's not a Green Seer is because that's what he's been told. And we know that Bloodraven is highly manipulative. I mean, he has the potential to be highly manipulative. Because, Bran clearly can affect the past. Bran clearly can affect the past. And, yeah. So, yeah, the way this... A raven against the white moon. House Aaron. You're right. How did I miss House Aaron? A raven against the white moon. I mean, that's like that is like even crazier because it's a raven against the white moon. Like that's nuts. So yeah, guys, I'm totally on the Jojen pace side. I feel like this chapter just screams something horrible is happening. This chapter just screams something horrible is happening. And I feel bad for Bran going down this path of like using Hodor's body, and he knows it's wrong. He knows it's wrong deep down to use Hodor's body, but he doesn't care. He simply does not care. And Bloodraven, there's no way that a Green Seer... Oh, it's a falcon. Okay, it's a falcon. Yeah, like the House Aaron is a falcon, isn't it? But yeah, like there's no way that a Green Seer as powerful as Bloodraven, a skin changer as powerful as Bloodraven, doesn't know that Bran is inhabiting Bloodraven's, Hodor's mind. And even in the beginning of this book, it is said that to take over someone else's mind is an abomination. It's like the sickest thing that you can do. It's the sickest thing that you can do. Dude, you're still right. Thank you, creepypasta al dente. Crescent moon equals sickle. Crescent moon is like a sickle is like a curved blade. It's kind of like the aurochs that the Dothraki use. Exactly. It totally aligns. Like Jojen got sacrificed, and it's like really sad that it had to happen. But you know, I don't know. So what are these children up to? Like, I feel like everything in this chapter is so important. They've got a plot. I feel like it was not a mistake for George R. R. Martin to say that when Bran hears Leaf talk about like how their people got destroyed and shit, it's not a mistake that Bran is like, oh, if these were men, we would have fought and like got vengeance. Yeah, the children want vengeance too. Yeah, so Jojen was certainly a sacrifice. And that's the payoff. And George R. R. Martin says it, like George R. R. Martin, he said it 4 times in this chapter. 4 times this chapter. Like, he's throwing it at us. Guys. I'm not sure about Meera, but she is missing. She is definitely missing, and they're not seen again after this. She's definitely missing. So it's very interesting to think about. So that is the entire chapter. I guess I'll look at the chat now, and I'll take you guys' questions. Let me put it on the screen. In fact, let's do this. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Okay. Sickles are for reaping a harvest, aka death. His scythe, aka the great other, is death. Oh, very interesting connection. Edger. You guys got some weird names. Edger. Jojen paste. Yes, indeed. Jojen paste. So yeah, this chapter is definitely one of the best chapters. One of the all-around best chapters in a song in all the books. One of the creepiest chapters. Like, very dark imagery. I'm working, Jacoby. Go back in the living room. Yeah, so very eerie chapter. That's your surname, Edger. Where are you from? Edger. I've never heard that name before. Yeah, very dark imagery in this chapter. Like George R. R. Martin is telling you, like, this is not. He's like, because it's so contradicting to what exactly the children are telling him and what the Three-Eyed Crow is actually saying. Yeah. I'm busy, man. Stop it. Go back in the living room. So yeah, like, where was I? Yeah, it's totally like the imagery of this chapter is contradicting to everything that the Children of the Forest and Bloodraven are telling Bran. Like he's like, oh, it's dark, and Bran can't even bear to look at this like corpse, and it's like totally eerie. But like the children are like, oh no, we're trying to save humanity, but no, it's England but Nigerian. It's Eddie Jah, huh? Eddie Jah. Very interesting. Oh my god. Yeah. What is it? Oh my god. I'll be right back, guys. What? Oh my god. I'm sorry, guys. It's my nephew. Okay. I wonder if the Arryns and Starks used to be mortal enemies then. See, I wonder, I'm really curious as to who the woman is, also the pregnant woman, that rises out of the water in this chapter and prays for vengeance. I'm interested to know who that woman is. When will you read again to us, Brother Quinn? Oh, well, I'm like, this is something new that I'm trying out. It might be a weekly thing, it might be a bi-weekly thing, it might happen like once in a blue moon. We will see. I've got a pretty good reception though. Like, I had a pretty stable audience throughout, considering that it's just me reading and discussing a chapter. But then, like I said, you guys tend to enjoy my readings more than I actually thought. I never thought that I had like such a, like people are always telling me like your voice is so scary. And I never really thought that I had a scary voice at all or anything. I never even thought that my reading voice was that good until I started doing YouTube. Like it was kind of an uphill climb because like I go back and I look at some of my other videos, the weird accents that I used to do were like I don't even know how I had any subscribers back then at all. But yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely do more. It's very fun. I enjoy reading the chapters. I enjoy dictating because I feel like I can project my emotions and what I'm feeling when I read it to everyone else. That's part of the reason why I like to do readings in my just normal videos because I like to give people that sense and that feeling of what I felt when I was reading that. Um, do you think you have to have the Children of the Forest blood to be a skin changer? Yeah. I honestly do because this is something I don't necessarily know how it could be taught if it's just part of who they are. So I think that somewhere down the line, mankind bred with the Children of the Forest, and that's how it got into their lineage. And that's also probably why it's more prominent beyond the wall because there were more children beyond the wall. This is very unprofessional. Yes, yes, indeed, it's very unprofessional. I never said I was a professional. I never did. I never said I was a professional. I don't know. I don't even know. Hope you read the Varamir epilogue next chapter. You mean the prologue? Perhaps it's a very good chapter. It's a very good chapter. Um, very good chapter. Yes, indeed. So I think pretty soon I'm gonna wrap this up. It went by quicker than I thought. I've only been streaming for an hour. I expected it to be longer. Um, Look, I love Roy Dotrice. I have the audiobooks to Game of Thrones, and I love his voices. I've totally grown accustomed to his voices. I mean, he says Brienne a little weird. He's like, Brian. Brian. He does say Brienne a little weird, and then, like, it kind of... The first time listening to him, like, it kind of weirded me out, the way, like, the scene where Dany is with, Khal Drogo. And the way he says no is a little weird. He's like, no. He says no. I'm like, why? Why did you say it like that? Why did you? I don't understand. Okay. So we will wrap this up soon. Did you read what George R. Martin said early? He said that Beric Dondarrion was a white reanimated by fire. He said that? Where did he say that? Like I saw him tweet something and a lot of people went nuts thinking that the Winds of Winter was going to be revealed. Um, a white reanimated by fire. See, that just... If George R. Martin actually said that, then I think it totally fits. Because fire and ice, they're just opposite of each other. Dragons are fire made flesh in the same way that the White Walkers are ice made flesh. It's literally... So there's an interview in Time Magazine that's very interesting. I've got to read it. I haven't read this yet. There's a channel that does Dunk and Egg comics aligned with the other. See, the thing about... Okay, look, this is the thing. I can't read entire chapters on my channel. That's why whenever I do post excerpts, it's always like a few minutes of a portion of the chapter. Because if I were to narrate every chapter in these books, I'd probably get flagged. Because that would infringe upon, the audiobooks. Like, if you can just listen to me read it online, then why would you buy an audiobook? So like I don't want to face any like legal problems or have my channel possibly flagged or taken down because I narrated an audiobook. So like I'll continue to do excerpts, but I can't narrate an entire thing. Human man, is Bran still just a man? I don't know. I don't know. It remains to be seen what Bran's future is. Lady Stoneheart was a white, he said. I don't remember if he included Beric. Well, that's interesting because Lady Stoneheart and Beric both have like wills of their own. Or do they? That's another... Like, what if, since he did say that, what if Beric and Lady Stoneheart are being controlled by some unseen force in the same way that the White Walkers are. But like I mean, like with whites, there's so many of them. Like you can't. I mean, they seem like mindless zombies, but if there was just one, why could not some force be speaking through Stoneheart and controlling her, perhaps? Because like whites are just thralls. They just do the will of the others. Danny goes through a similar process. Can you do a reading of Danny in the House of the Undying? Actually, go back in the living room.
Why do you help?
For what?
I think we don't work.
Okay, give me a minute.
What are you doing? You get some water?
I'm reading for some people.
Is that water?
Yes, that's water. All right, no, go back in the living room. I'll be in a minute. No, don't touch it. Go back. I'll be in a minute. Go back in there. All right, see ya.
Oh, man.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, like the House of the Undying chapter is definitely one that I was considering. Yeah, it's also one of my favorite chapters.
Help me.
I will in just a second. I'm busy. I'm on. Like, there's literally over 100 people listening to me right now. Okay. Okay.
When you get a chance, come here. I'm missing something.
Just put it on PBS, Nanny. His TV.
Oh, okay. But I'm talking about missing my boiler. I'm missing a boiler and a pan about like this.
Okay. Oh. Okay. Now that that's over. God, people don't respect boundaries anymore. They just barge right on in. Okay, where was I anyways? Yeah, Stoneheart definitely has a will. So, yeah. So, yeah, I might as well just go ahead and end this. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble. Sorry about the interruptions. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we'll do this again maybe next week. So, peace out, guys. I'll see ya one of these days, one of these days.